Welcome back to the channel, and today we're looking at the Tempest Knives Fractus. This is the 5th design, 4th release coming from Tempest Knives, and this, I think, is my favorite of the bunch so far. I'm definitely a fan of Tempest Knives. Started with the Mach 51, but that one did not get funded. Then we went to the budget pinion, from that to the microbursts, and then the Jetstream, and I love them all. They're all super comfortable knives, very useful knives, and this one is probably the most churched up, if you want to say, design so far, just because of the inlay. Those other designs were OEM by Kubi Knives, and this particular one is OEM by Concept, and I gotta say, they knocked it out of the park. The only time that I can recall seeing Concept's OEM work was with the Devo Knives Lush, and they knocked this one out of the park, so I was pretty excited when I heard Casey say that he went with Concept on this one. Not saying Kubi does bad work, they do phenomenal work, but I do like he said, he went with them because of the choice of their inlay work. They do some phenomenal inlay work, no doubt about it. He is hoping to put the pre-order live either the end of January or the beginning of February. Maybe I can ask my wife to get me this for my birthday on January 23rd. That would be a nice present. The price should be somewhere in the $200 to $230 range, which I think is outstanding for what you're getting here. And the runs are going to consist of, and I think this is a ballpark, or it might be set in stone, I don't know that for sure, but 100 of this one with the Arctic Storm fat carbon inlay. There'll be 50 with a regular carbon fiber weave inlay, and the inlays are on both sides. And it's going to have the same satin blade, micro milling and stuff like that I'll show you on a little bit. And then also 50 with black coated titanium, black coated clip, and a black wash blade with the same regular weave carbon fiber inlay. So it's going to be more like a murdered out version. There are a few changes from this prototype, and we'll discuss those at the end of the video. All necessary links will be down in the description, so if you're interested in this, follow the Tempest Knives page, and I would follow Tempest Knives on Instagram as well, so you can get any updates as they come. This is a nice size EDC knife at around 8 inches long with a 3.49 inch drop point blade of CPM S90V steel. I'm very happy they went with that. I love S90V. It's such an aggressive performer, and we're going to test that out in just a second. The satin versions have a nice even satin on it. Concept does a good job with that. You got a nice low tip drop point, so this is going to be a very versatile drop point. You better use that tip if you need to. It's going to be great at piercing, and you don't have a dainty tip there. You got a little meat behind it, so if you need to do a little digging or prodding, you should be able to. You have 2 sets of jimping here. This one right here is very functional. It grips your thumb nicely if you're choked back. However, if you are choked back, you are going to be pretty far from that edge. I noticed myself here majority of the time. They do have a second row of jimping here, but we'll talk about that toward the end. That's one of the things that's going to be changed. You have his signature cockpit blade hole right there with, this little closed portion right there. I love it. It functions phenomenally, and we will see that more when I talk about the action. You got a nice 50-50 choil, or about 75, I don't know. You got a forward finger choil. Nice and comfortable. It should better fit most fingers nicely, unless you got ginormous fat sausage fingers. It should be nice and comfortable right there. The blade has a flat grind that comes down to around 15 thousandths behind the edge, and you can see how thin it is right there. So it's nice and thin. Let's see how it performs. This knife has outstanding blade geometry. It's slicing very well. One thing you will need to do is, if you don't use that forward finger choil, you probably will get hung up in there, but it just feels so good anyway to choke up like that. So that's pretty much where I stayed anytime I was cutting anything in hand. But yeah, it's making sharp work of the cardboard, no problem. And one thing that Casey from Tempest Knives is excellent at is making an ergonomic knife. This thing is very comfortable, and as I'm increasing pressure, it's just taking chunks out of this piece of, I think it's pine. Very comfortable. I'm choked up once again. And even though the handle is not super thick, it's nice and contoured, so no hot spots really, and I'm able to bear down into that wood pretty darn hard. And that drop point is makes it so easy to do this type of stuff. Yeah, I was really enjoying it. Like I said, nothing poking prodding me, and it was a very powerful cutter. Now we move to the 1/2 inch twisted sisal rope. And being this is S90V, I decided to go a little bit further than I normally do. So I cut two strands, see where we get from there. That blade shape is perfect for cutting down on a flat surface. I'm doing a lot of push cuts here, and just trying different grips out too. Pinch grip was very comfortable. Kind of doing a little rocking motion cut too, just to see. I do swap over to try out that front jimping, and it's funny, after you'll see me trying it and I don't stay there long because that jimping is a little farther away than I expected it to be, and I couldn't really get a good cut that way. But after checking Casey's notes, he's moving that jimping back and he's putting it in that spot that I had hoped it was at. So yeah, it should be perfect. Give you perfect grip right there to do a pointer finger cut. And yeah, I'm pretty surprised. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way this one's cutting. We end up getting through 119 cuts, and that's just whenever I ran out of the second piece. It definitely still has a good edge on it. And that S90V's got some nice aggression to it, nice toothiness, and yeah, it's going to perform very well. Even though it's a little bit thicker by that tip, just because of being a drop point, it still performed nice up there. I wouldn't have any skating issues off the rope or anything. And I got a nice solid handle's thick enough where I'm able to hold on to it nicely. And I could have probably done another 100 without being without it bothering my hands any, which is not always the case. I'm usually blistered up around this point, and it's usually miserable, but not so with the Fractus. Just showing that I can get that tip down into the leather. I do a little bit of zigzag cut with it. It's like a little scalpel up there in the front, and it's making short work of all this. Nothing really gave it any troubles. You got that satin finish, so there's nothing causing any friction. And this is why I love the drop point so much. It makes everything easy to do. Flat cutting surface, in-hand cuts. And this 10-ounce denim, yeah, it still has a ton of bite to it. I'm very satisfied with the way this one performed. Now let's take a look at the deployment of this knife. It's got that nice long blade hole, so you can dial this detent to be a little stronger if you'd want, because you can reach all the way to that bottom. This thing is very fidgety. It rockets out. You can use the thumb hold to thumb flick it. You can slow roll it. You can spotty drop it. You know, it's very fidgety, very smooth, very snappy. I've been fidgeting with this thing quite often. My wife gave me the stank eye a few times doing that reverse flick in front of her face. But yeah, very nice and crisp, riding on ceramic ball bearings with a ceramic detent ball. Now let's take a look at this stunning handle area. You have his signature car rim pivot. They did a great job on that. I think it looks great. Like I said earlier, you have an Arctic Storm fat carbon inlay on both sides. I love the fact that they're on both sides like that. And then I don't know if I'll be able to show it. I'll try to maybe throw some still shots of that nice micro milling they have on the tie. It looks really nice. It goes well with the inlays. You can see it better on this side, I think. And it's pretty smooth to the touch. It just gives it a nice little contrast. You got nice contouring, and that's what I said earlier. Casey does an excellent job. He pays attention to the ergos, and that's important to me. My hands are already beat up enough. I don't need a knife to be beating them up anymore. You do have a titanium backspacer that comes up about half the way, a little bit over half. You do have a mill-tied clip. I love the way he did this. He went on the back side of it right here. So you could go deep carry and still use this mill clip. and you didn't have to have any extra holes on the opposite side for that clip. You have a Torx T8 for the pivot. Unfortunately, I've heard this from not just Casey, but a bunch of people that have done work with Concept. They will not do T8 hardware. They say they can't get it. I mean, I don't know. I won't talk about the reason, but they only do T6 for the body screws, which I'm fine. I've never had one of them strip on me. I would love them to be T8, but that's out of his control. Very nice in hand, choked back, choked up. If you want to do the gas station fighting grip, you can. Yeah, everything's nice and comfortable because it's a fairly neutral handle. Your weight relieving comes from where they milled out the section for the carbon fiber on both sides and the contouring on the scales to bring down the weight as much as possible, along with the blade hole and stuff like that. Bringing it to 4.278 ounces. I'm A-okay with that. The lockup on this one is sitting at around, I'd say 50% or so. Beautiful lockup. No movement, any direction whatsoever. Very tight lockup on this. Access to the lock bar is good because this comes down a little bit lower. And we'll talk about that chamfer at the end as well. Quick size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. It's a hair smaller than the Spyderco PM2 and the Hogue Ritter RSK. It's a hair longer than the Tempest Jetstream and the Tempest Pinion. And it's really similar in size to Spyderco Manix 2 and the Kubi Tidius. Alright, now for my nitpicks and complaints. I only have one, and it's just a nitpick. And then we'll talk about the things that are being changed. And I don't think this is something that's being changed, but I think it would have been nice if they would have done this lock relief on the inside so you could keep this all clean right here. I think it would have looked great, but it's definitely not a deal breaker for me. Now let's discuss some of these changes. First things first, he's going to make this clip a little bit thicker because right now there's a little bit of side-to-side movement. And it's not going to be that much thicker, and it's still going to perform just the same way. It's going to perform nice, but just addressing that, he didn't want no wobble. And plus, being that he has an angle cut on that clip, you can't just spin this clip around for the lefty. So he's getting separate left side clips made, around 50 of them or so. Also, these inlay screws, so they're not so noticeable. He's going to go with black inlay screws. That way they'll blend in with the carbon fiber. And right now, because of the thinner titanium, put a very, and it's hard to even see it, you got to see the little shadow, put a very, very small chamfer right here. And it doesn't bother me because I use this portion of my finger and it's just fine. But if I do use my thumb, it isn't the most comfortable. So that is something that he addressed with them, and he's going to try to get it more like this Devo Lush, who could definitely do it because they did it on this thinner piece of tie, but done like that right there. So that is definitely going to be addressed. And I talked about this in the cutting, and it's funny, I didn't read this that he was changing this to after, but when I was cutting, I went to a pointer finger grip when I was doing the rope, and I wanted to try to use this jimping right here. So when I went up there and went to push it, I felt really off balance. And I was like, man, I wish it was like more like right here, so I got more of a control of that handle and I can kind of do a sawing motion if I wanted to. And when I was looking back, he's moving this back to about, it's going to go from here, it's going to start at the end of this and it's going to come back however far that is. So probably to about right there. So that's the one plus about getting a knife from somebody who is in the community, you know, like Casey. He reviews knives and he sends these around to fellow reviewers. So you can bet all the little details that can be changed that maybe would hurt the functionality or things that everybody likes, you can bet it's probably going to be in there because he listens to suggestions. There's no point in sending a knife in a pass around or anything if you're not going to take suggestions. And Casey is very receptive. You know, now, I've always talked to him about, don't ever change your overall vision on the knife, but little tweaks that make the knife better, yeah, I'm all for that. Same with my own design, you know. That's why I'm happy that I have two people to collab with so we can bounce ideas off each other to try to bring y'all the best product I can. So, I absolutely love this knife. If I can afford it, when the pre-order goes live, if I can afford it, I will most certainly be picking this one up. And like I said, it's not a huge run. So if you are interested in this knife, pay attention to the Tempest Knives Instagram, check out the website, and find out the drop date. I don't know how long he's going to leave the drop open. I'm sure he's going to leave it open until it's probably full. I don't know how fast these will fill up. This is a beautiful knife. They will be priced well. I think $200 to $230 is an outstanding price for S90V steel, titanium with fat carbon inlays on both sides, mill tie clip, beautiful action, and it's a nice size knife too. So yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think about the Fractus. I know what I think. I love it. And yeah, cannot wait to check out what he does next. He already gave me a little sneak peek, and I think if you follow him on Instagram, he showed it on Instagram as well. Definitely excited about that one as well. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day, and I will see y'all on the next one. Peace!